Fox News tweeted, quoting Karine Jean-Pierre, in which she was talking about bans on trans treatment for minors. She said, "These are our kids. They belong to all of us." Okay, if I may have my screen back now. These are our kids. They belong to all of us. And many people online, conservatives, I expect, had a predictable meltdown as a result of this. Not today, Satan. The Dems are communists. They're saying the quiet part out loud. Right? These were some of the kinds of responses that she got for, and this is just based on that one tweet from Fox. I'm sure there was all sorts of other similar stuff all over the web. But I don't think the conservatives have it right either, because the press secretary, while objectively wrong at one level, right? These kids aren't all of ours. You know, our producer sitting over there is not your child. He's our child, and he's never going to be anyone else's child, right? Even as he's not a child anymore, he's still our offspring, our child. But it's also true that the children are our future, and that sounds woo and silly, but it's true. Collectively, we owe it to the children. We owe it to the children, not just our children, but all of the children, to not let them destroy themselves. We do. We also owe them a functional world, and this is part of why people like us are interested in preserving and conserving natural resources and wildness, so that people in the future can have a world in which it is possible to actually see wildness and learn something from it. And the madness masquerading as care and kindness in trans activism world, that is puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and surgeries for minors, is something that we as a society are obligated to protect our children from. So we have a quandary, right? Both sides in this, and this really does seem to fall into sides, but it's not left versus right. It's not liberal versus conservative. Both sides in the should children be allowed to medically transition to appear more like the sex they are not. Yes, that's the language of our side debate. That is, both sides in the should we let children decide to stop development and then start taking cross-sex hormones and have surgery that is irreversible. Both sides in that debate seem to truly believe that they are on the right side of history, right? That this is about protecting children. I'm sure there are people on both sides. I know there are people on the side whom the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, thinks she is representing, who are acting cynically and are not working on behalf of children. And presumably there's people on both sides who aren't, but mostly people really do think that they are advocating for an underrepresented, disempowered group that needs their support on both sides of this. And frankly, for conservatives to forget that they also care about all children in order to, dump on the press secretary for making a claim that the children belong to all of us, is a little disingenuous and a little hypocritical, even though I get it. Like, I understand that the response is, no, stay the hell away from my children, right? But we do really have a quandary here, because we, as people who are liberal in almost all of our beliefs, but who absolutely are certain that children need to be protected from their fantasies and their delusions and their social contagion and not be allowed to block their own puberty and thus cause themselves, or certainly any of the things farther down that road, and thus cause themselves a lifelong medicalization that may have yielded infertility, among many other problems. We are certain, in fact, as presumably are the people on the other side, that we're on the right side of history and that we're protecting people. So what do we do? It's not so simple. It's not a not today Satan question.
First of all, press secretary is a very special job. Mm-hmm. It's the job I want least in life, right? It's an evil job. It's a job that you're paid to either be stupid or lie through your teeth.
Yeah. No, and she, I looked a little bit into her background. Like, she's had a ton of interesting and reputable, like academic positions and, this, that, and the other. So, she didn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah. Nonetheless,
Yeah.
the point is, it came out of her mouth.
Yeah.
This is a ploy, and I think I know what ploy this is. And the problem is that this is a ploy in which both sides get what they want. So, game theoretically, it's a funny object. So I want to give an example from somewhere else. There's a documentary. I forget. It's basically a New Atheist documentary in which there is a scene in which Richard Dawkins confronts a famous creationist, maybe intelligent design guy, and they have a little debate, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a sciencey person, Dawkins destroys him, absolutely destroys him. Mm-hmm. But if you're a skeptic, no, Dawkins is absolutely obliterated, right? And the point is, oh yeah, they both deliver to their audience what. So the point is, they both cryptically win. I'm not saying Dawkins was not cynical in this. Dawkins thought he won the debate. He did not understand that from the point of view of the utility of the object, it changed nobody's mind, right? All it did was feed each of their audiences exactly what they wanted, right? Now, this thing that came out of the press secretary's mouth is a clever construction designed to produce this reaction. And the point is,
sorry, but like that is part of why I started with like, I went and scrolled through the comments. I'm like, not today, Satan.
Right.
Dems are communists. They're saying the quiet part out loud. And like, oh, but of course you're saying those things. But aren't you the same people who do honestly want to protect children?
Right.
You?
But
imagine
imagine how this looks from, you and I are blue dissidents. So it's very hard for us to actually feel what it's like to be a blue believer at the moment. Yeah. But from a blue believer's perspective, here's what happened. The press secretary said something actually just noble and normal, something everybody understood 2 years ago. And the conservatives are so crazy that they actually thought it was demonic. Right? So what she said was, the children are all our responsibility, right? That's not the exact quote, but that's what people who are New York Times readers will have heard.
These are our kids. They belong to all of us.
They belong to all of us. My point is, they belong to all of us is the most beautiful Mott and Bailey I've ever seen, right? Yeah. There is an interpretation of they belong to all of us that is so obvious and so fundamental to the way a civilization works that no reasonable person could possibly disagree with it. And in the present context, if you say the children belong to all of us, well, not my fucking kids. You keep your hands off them, right? So it is simultaneously the most obvious thing in the world and the most aggressive attack on children you can imagine. And so both sides, the press secretary says it. She gets exactly what she wants. And whoever wrote that phrase, they get exactly what they want. Where the home team just like, yeah, of course. And then the conservatives go, you can't possibly mean that. And then the blue team goes, wait, what's wrong with those people? Are they really so crazy they don't understand that we have an obligation to children, right? So it's
and that's why I started. Right. Yeah.
So anyway, my point is just, okay, everybody, can we stop being played by these assholes? They're not on any of our teams.
Yes.
Right? These people are about their own power. And what they're doing is they're using children. They are cynically using children, completely indifferent to the harm done to them, to divide us. Right? They are using children to divide civilization so that they can play their fucking political games and they can win their power and they can sell it to their real constituents that have nothing to do with voters, right? This is not about us. And so it is really important that we remember that, yes, children are our collective responsibility. The primary mechanism through which we honor that responsibility is through parents, right? This is generally simple. In general, one's parents has their own children's interests at heart, and we can trust them to make the judgment calls. We are now manipulating parents and telling them They don't understand, and basically we are pulling the same kind of coup that public health pulled on medicine, right? Civilization is now pulling on parents, and it is telling them you don't have the right to do what's right for your kid.
Yeah, no, and teachers are acting like the doctors who were captured by ideological nonsense during the pandemic.
Right, everybody is, because everybody lives in fear of being on the wrong side of history, which I get in trouble sometimes for invoking the right and the wrong side of history. I'm a believer in these things, but I'm not a believer in them as in, oh, here is a right side of history that you must be on. My point is we should all be trying to understand how history will actually look at this. But this makes us terrifically manipulable if we, start taking people's word for what the right side is. And we have to avoid that. Especially where children are involved.
Especially where children are involved.